teacher used to say, and dangerously local. All right. Come on. StreamYard has been giving me fits tonight. All right. Good evening and welcome to a very special edition of Sports Corner Special, and that is the Steeler preseason show. My special guests tonight are Joe KUKLIS, Claudio Rosano, and by phone we have SMOKIN Jim FRAZIER. It's great to be here, everybody, and to have you guys on with me tonight for this very special show. Luther DUPREE should be coming up shortly. As soon as he does, we'll get him up and on the air with us as well. Tonight we're going to go dissect this entire Steeler. We're going to dissect the whole Steeler season here. I have the schedule here. We're going to go over that a little bit. And we're also going to go over position by position, what we think they may need to improve on, where things need to go, and what are your thoughts are on the current preseason games so far. All right, so first we're going to start with preseason games. I thought the first two were a little tough. I thought maybe they could have been a little bit better, so let's start off with you, Joe KUKLIS. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think game one, they came out and scored on, 3 of their first 4 drives. They looked efficient, but, it's hard to say. A lot of that is pre-scripted. The teams are not playing, it's basically a glorified scrimmage at that point. Game two looked exactly like you described it. It was rough. I think that, if you take that in encapsulate it, I mean, the Jaguars are not a powerhouse, and I think our offensive line did not perform where it needed to be. It doesn't surprise me. I think that was one place that did not address in the offseason, either through draft or through free agency in a way that they needed to. They did sign Mason Cole. They did sign, they made 2 signs, from other teams that came over to help out. And then, of course, the Chuks Okafor long-term signing. But, this line does not look good. Defensive line looked better, but they're dangerously thin. I think you've got a couple of 30-year-olds, a retiree, with leaving a little bit of a gap there in the hopes that Isaiah Loudermilk or some others can fill in and grow into the position. I hope that's the case, but Cam Hayward's long in the tooth, Alu is long in the tooth, so we'll see what happens there. Outside of that, I mean, I think they've got a good quarterback problem. They've got Kenny's really shown that he could, to bring it. He looks like he's ready for this level. Trubisky is looks like the day one starter, or at least maybe the month one starter for that matter. And I think everybody's been impressed with what Mason Rudolph's been able to do in not only the scrimmages at St. Vincent, but in some of these games. And I know that there's talk about him potentially ending up on the trading block here before all is said and done. I think the receivers looked like they're here, especially Pickens has really impressed me. And of course, they're not going to play Najee or get anywhere close to that before the season starts. So, I think we'll get into some of the more specific positions later, but I agree with you. I thought that Jacksonville game was a disappointing performance and one that they should have done better. And I'm hoping this game against the Lions, they can kind of put everything together. But, I'm not sure this team is better than 500.
Okay, how about you, Claudio Rosano?
I agree a lot with what Joe said, but a couple things. As far as preseason games are concerned, I think in the 70s and the 80s, you could tell more about your team because they actually tried to win. Yes, they were trying to see who could fit where, but I think they cared a little bit more about winning and losing back then. Now it's just a lot of let's try this guy out here, let's try this, let's try that. So we'll open up with that. As far as the quarterbacks are concerned, again, let me jump around here. I've said this numerous times, and I could be wrong. This is my opinion. The 2 most important positions on the football field are the offensive line first, then the defensive line. When you have a good offensive line, it helps your quarterback, helps your running game. It also helps the defense because you can stay on the field longer. Defensive line helps the linebackers and cornerbacks. So it kind of links in. But Joe said they have a good quarterback problem. They do in a sense, but that's kind of like, in my opinion, I think they should have just gone with Trubinsky and stay with Trubinsky and drafted a lineman, offensive lineman. I've never thought that. I still don't think Kenny Pickett is a number one draft pick, in my opinion. I know he's done well in preseason, but a lot of dink and dunks. I don't know if he has the arm strength yet to go deep and maybe bring a team back. That's just my opinion. Some of those runs that he had, they were 10, 15, 20-yard gains in the ACC. They might be 2-yard gains or a sack in the NFL. I still think he's going to hold on to the ball a little bit longer. Again, these are just projections on my opinions. I agree with Joe again with the defensive backfield, kind of thin. I do like the defensive line, but they are getting up there. I do like that linebacker. I'm trying to Tuska, if that's how you pronounce it. I really like him a lot. I don't know what you guys think. I'm curious to think what all three of you think of him. But he's the guy that's standing out for me defensively. Back to offense, Harris is big time. And I've said since he joined the Steelers that I believe he reminds me of a guy, and Jim remembers him. Joe, I'm sure you remember the name Lawrence McCutcheon from the LA Rams. He had 5 great years, 73 to 77 with the LA Rams, not just carrying the ball, but running, receiving the ball, and not just dink and dunks. He actually ran deeper patterns for the Rams back then, who weren't a big passing team. I think Harris could be that type of a guy. Now the wide receivers, I think they have a great team of wide receivers. Pickens is going to be big time. Claypool can be big time. I didn't like the signing of Deontay. How's his name? Johnson.
Deontay Johnson.
Deontay Johnson. I wasn't crazy about that signing. I didn't think they needed him. I think that they have a good core, and they could have picked up another free agent somewhere. I think they could have put that money elsewhere. And I don't know if you guys, Joe, Jim, and especially Joe and Jim and Ralph, all three of you guys agree. But again, all in all, I don't think they have from what I see, the division, I still think the Ravens are going to be tough. Cincinnati, everybody expects them to have the Super Bowl, drop hangover. I don't know if they'll necessarily have that, but I don't see them being much more than a 500 team or a game or two below.
Okay, Smokin' Jim, you're next. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks, Ralph.
You're welcome.
I tell you what, man. Right now, I got fried hot dogs on my mind. But hey, man, I've been remiss not to give a rest in peace to Lenny Dawson. Dawson was drafted in the first round by the Pittsburgh Steelers, along with Johnny Unitas. That's back when the Steelers would cut you for Ted Marchibroda. Quarterback, but hey, you know what, man? I've been very impressed so far with the preseason. It's really getting exciting. But what I was looking for, mainly coming in, is I knew the offensive line was going to stink again, but I think that this new offensive line coach can get them playing a little bit better. They're working on some techniques right now that they're fighting. But if they can get that together a little bit, they can improve. Nobody likes change, and this new offensive line coach has some technique changes that the offensive line is a little bit stubborn in changing, but they need to do that in a hurry. But I was looking for a backup running back, man, and I think we found one with Warren. I think that he breaks more tackles than any other running back I've seen since Barry Foster runs through tackles, man. And this guy, even with his small size, man, he can really catch the football out of the backfield. He stepped up and made some impressive blocks in the third down package last week. So I think the Pittsburgh Steelers just need to get, like their fans and Jacksonville fans, man, they need to get that fight in them, brother. That's what they need.
I got you. Okay, we're getting Luther DUPREE coming up here in a few moments. As soon as we get him up in 1 second here, it looks like. I'm waiting for him.
Luther's like, hey, Ralph, Luther's like the shows on BET. They come on sometimes 10 after 8.
his device isn't connected yet. I'm waiting for it to get connected. So as soon as that happens, we'll get there. Okay, my opinion of this season is, and I agree with all three of you guys, especially with Joe and Claudio. I think we should have went into the draft and really drafted heavy on the offensive and defensive line. This draft kind of puzzled me a little bit because, you know, as it's been said many times, Kevin Colbert shouldn't have really been involved in this draft. I know it was his last, but he should have let the new guy kind of take over. And at the time, there wasn't no new guy announced, but I'm sure that, you know, Omar Khan might have had some say in this draft. But, you know, I wasn't very – I wouldn't say I wasn't happy. I just wasn't – I was disappointed, okay, because the Ravens – they went out and they got Travis Jones. They went out and they drafted that little kid from Minnesota that I thought the Steelers should have took, that 380-pound offensive lineman who plays like Refrigerator Perry. What he does is he can catch, he can throw the ball, he participates in fake punts, and, you know, he does a lot of things. So what I'm saying is that you know, that's what I thought we needed to go out and get. I wanted to take Travis Jones, a nose tackle from Connecticut. He dropped to the 4th round, and the Ravens ended up scooping him up, and they got big and beefy and heavy, and I think it's going to be a tough sledding against the Bengals and the Ravens. The Browns, as far as the AFC North goes, I don't see them doing too much of anything this year. There's a lot of disarray in that team. It's going to continue to be the same old Browns. But I see a little bit of improvement in the Bengals and the Ravens. They look, you know, they got beefier and tougher, and you know, we'll see what Lamar Jackson does. And I just feel that the you know, both lines of scrimmages for the Steelers need to improve and improve fast, or this is going to be a long season. I'm thinking, you know, it's going to be quite a long season. Okay, Luther's trying to get back on here again. I don't know what happened. His devices were not connected, but we'll get him back on here. All right, guys. Let's start on our next topic. First, we're going to talk about, and Claudio has spoken, and so has Joe KUKLIS, the quarterbacks. All right, what's your thoughts on the quarterbacks as a whole? First, we'll start with Smokin' Jim.
Well, told you and everybody going into the season, I thought that this was Mason Rudolph's team. Everybody thought he was going to get cut. Everybody thought he wasn't going to get an opportunity. I thought that this was his year. This guy was 6'5". I just thought that sometimes it takes quarterbacks a little bit longer. If you watch his game tape at Oklahoma State, he won every award that you could win, from the Majority Unitas Award on down. He broke every record that you could break. I thought he ran into some bad situations. You know, here with Pittsburgh. So I don't think that, I mean, what was he, 19 to 24 or something like that this past game? I don't think that there's anything he can do. I'm convinced now. I thought he won the job in minicamp and in training camp, but he's not going to be given the opportunity. Hey, I love Kenny Pickett. I thought that was a great pick for a team that needed a quarterback to get one of the top 2 quarterbacks in the NFL. So I'm not going to kick the Pittsburgh Steelers for that, but I'm not going to give Kenny a lot of credit for playing against vanilla defenses and Deacon and Duncan. Listen, when if they put Kenny Pickett into a regular season game against defenses that's going to game plan and confuse him, and the way that offensive line is not able to pick up stunts, it could be he could lose a lot of confidence. Like Claudio said, Claudio always liked Trubisky, and I think that Trubisky is even a better athlete than I thought he would be at this year in his NFL career. He looks like he's running around like he did at North Carolina. He's getting away from some things, but they need to work on scramble drills because he has some guys wide open. I mean, what good is it to elude 3 or 4 rushers and then to overthrow or underthrow a wide open receiver? So the Pittsburgh Steelers need to really work on some scramble drills, especially with that offensive line. But I think the quarterback situations okay. I'm a little bit disappointed. The practices that I went to, the guy that threw the best ball, other than Mason Rudolph, was the young quarterback that they just cut. He had a beautiful arm, man. They never gave him opportunity. They promised that they would put him in a game against Jacksonville, the kid from South Dakota, and they ended up cutting him. So maybe, hopefully, they'll put him on the practice squad because the kid got a beautiful arm. And why draft him if you're not going? He could have went somewhere else where they needed a quarterback and maybe, make the team as the third quarterback. Why draft this kid if you was just going to cut him? So hopefully they'll put him on the practice squad. I don't think that they gave him a fair opportunity, not putting him in any football game.
Okay, Claudio REILSONO, your thoughts on the quarterbacks?
Again, to repeat, I thought that they should have gone after either Mariota or Trubisky. They got Trubisky. I'm fine with that. I think he can do well here in Pittsburgh. I think he's got a good arm. He can scramble, like Jim said. He's got to be able to hit those guys. But then I thought once they signed Trubisky, they can go after an offensive line in the draft, go heavy offense and defensive line. And I think Mason Rudolph would have been a solid backup quarterback. To me, a guy like Mason Rudolph and even a guy like Pickett. You remember Sean Rodriguez for the Pirates? If he would have 200, 275, 285 at bats, he was productive. As soon as he started getting into the 300 at bats, 325, 330, he sunk. He was exposed. I think guys like Pickett and Mason Rudolph are good backups. Okay, if you put them in too much, they're going to be exposed. So I would have gone with Trubisky, gone heavy in the draft. You have a nice running back, some very good excellent receivers, tight ends. I didn't see the need for Pickett. Again, everybody's getting emotional about Pickett. I wonder if they would have been so emotional about Kenny Pickett if he'd have played for Colorado State. You have to get the emotion out of it. And I'll tell you real quick, the show Shark Tank, I'll never forget this episode. They had a guy, I believe he was from Minnesota. He had a trucking bed device. And he said, this is a great device, and it has to be made in my hometown because we're hurting for jobs. And this is going to have a lot of jobs here. And the guys start crying, and there's people losing their homes. And I want to help my community. And Cuban was crying, and Hershevich was crying. Everybody on the panel was crying except for Mr. Wonderful, right? And they would tell the story, man, you have a great story and you want to help your community and you have a great product. He said, but we have to make it overseas. And the guy said, no, we're going to make it in Minnesota. And all of a sudden the tears shed. He said, great idea, great product. It's not going to make enough money. I pass. In other words, they got emotional. They all cried. They loved the guy, but they didn't think that was the right investment. So they backed off, and I learned a lot from that. You can love Kenny Pickett. He's great from Pitt. Oh yeah, he's great. He won all these awards, but can he take over our franchise and take it where we want it to be? I think they let the emotion get the best of them. So I would have gone with Trubisky, and then you have a good backup in Mason Rudolph, maybe a third string, the kid that Jim's talking about, but you could have had some offensive linemen and some defensive linemen.
All right, Joe KUKLIS.
So I'll take a little bit and respond to both Smith and Jim and Claudio here. I think that Claudio's right. I mean, at the time they went out and signed Trubisky, not thinking that Pickett was going to be there at 20 when they got him. And I think we all understand that Trubisky underwhelmed in many respects in Chicago. Then he bounced over, became a backup for last year. Everybody saw that improvement, and I think that the Steelers are giving a guy who has a pedigree, a second overall draft pick a few years ago, a second chance. And, we'll see, how and if that pans out for them. But I also think that they see a lot in Pickett. I not to be contrarian to what Claudio said, but I mean, these guys are professional evaluators of talent, and this guy lived next door to them. So sure, maybe it's a little bit of a hometown kind of thing, and and maybe there is a little soft spot in their hearts for the guy. But of this quarterback class, I remember when we had this conversation back during the preview for the draft. I mean, he was the best of a weak lot.
Right.
Can he grow into being an NFL quarterback, a starter, a worthwhile starter? Sure. But we don't know what we've got, right? And I'd say the same thing for Mason Rudolph. A few years ago, when we got him in the third round, I looked at him, I had evaluated him, thought it was going to be a higher round pick. But the guy came in and he won a bunch of awards, as Jim said earlier, and did really well at Oklahoma State, but he had problems with professional accuracy. And that happens to a lot of quarterbacks where, it's not a lazy thing. It's just they've never seen NFL talent before. And as Claudio and Jim said, they oftentimes have to grow into that role, and they have to realize that professional accuracy or quick reads or things like, they've got to be able to understand defenses better. That comes from time. Alec Mason used his, backup years under Roethlisberger to do that, and I think he's been a pleasant surprise in camp. I don't think there's any denying that. But I also agree with Jim. I mean, I think that they're going to re-sign the kid that they drafted late. He'll be on the practice squad and end up, trying to make a move with one of these other quarterbacks and see the easiest move would be to move Mason Rudolph to a team where he can compete for a starting spot. Clearly going to be the number even,
Okay. I don't mean to interrupt you, Joe. Sorry. We have Luther DUPREE coming on here. I just brought him on. Let's see. Here he comes.
Hey,
all right.
Thanks, Ralph, for having me on. Can you hear me okay?
Let's see what's going on with Luther. There he is.
Can you hear me,
All
Ralph?
right, Luther DUPREE, you finally made it. How you doing?
Finally made it.
Good.
So,
Hey, Luther, we just got started here with the show at 8 o'clock. We're talking about quarterbacks. What's your thoughts on the Steeler quarterbacks?
Well, listen, I was one of the ones I didn't think at first we should go for Kenny Pickett, but he looks the part. He looks very good, very poised for a young quarterback. Mason Rudolph, I think he looks like a good trade piece right now. He's been here, hasn't been able to get the job. I'm on the trade market. But yeah, I'm happy about Kenny Pickett. We got the right guy. We just got to get an offensive line around him. Ralph, can you hear me?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Luther. And Luther is on board now. Claudio Rosano, Joe KUKLIS, and we have Smokin' Jim Frazier by telephone. Welcome, guys. It's great to be here. We're here for the Sports Corner special Steeler preseason show. We're talking about the Steelers. We're breaking down positions, schedule. We're going to talk about just about everything. I had some guys on. I had a guy on from Atlanta. I had a guy on from Philly. I had two guys on, both from South Florida, and they all talked about Tampa Bay, Miami, Philly, Atlanta, and I had a reporter that I know named Steve Bellisari on from New England. These are the teams that the Steelers are playing this year. What do you think that they can do against these teams and the rest of the schedule as it goes? Because we're playing New England, New York Jets. I also had author Mike Westhoff on. He's a Jet. He's a former assistant coach for many teams. I had him on the show to talk about the Jets. I think he said that the Jets are running organized, very good and organized practices. They said Robert Saleh's got that team ready to go. So, New England's, they're always ready to go. And, Miami, we're going to find out what they do with that new coach down there. Philadelphia, Nick Sirianni had a good first-year season. Atlanta, we're going to see what Arthur Smith does in his second season. Carolina, on the other hand, Matt Rule, he's walking on eggshells. He just named Baker Mayfield his starting quarterback. And the Las Vegas Raiders have Josh McDaniel as their coach, the former offensive coordinator for New England. Now, I just rambled off the schedule of some of the teams other than our AFC North opponents. What are your thoughts, guys? Let's start off with Luther DUPREE. Luther? All right, well, we'll go. Let's start off again with Joe KUKLIS. Go ahead, Joe.
Sure. So I think a lot of those that you named are losses, right? I mean, I think that a Tom Brady-led Tampa Bay Buccaneers is going to be a loss. I think the Buffalo Bills are going to be a loss. I think that New England's always a tough out. I think it's possible. They're, I think, at the Steelers' range this year. I think the Jets are going to be improved, but I think the Steelers should be able to beat them. If you look at the rest of the NFC South and with Carolina, Atlanta, and New Orleans, I think all of those teams are beatable. I think the Raiders are probably a little bit better than the Steelers. They were a playoff team last year, like us, lost in that first round game against the Cincinnati Bengals. But Josh McDaniels he's got Devontae Adams there now, and Carr coming back. And as long as Waller can stay healthy at tight end, they'll have a pretty decent offense. They're going to do a running back by committee, it appears, this year, and I think their defense is improved. They did a pretty decent job in the draft too. But again, I said it at the top of the show. I'll say it again. I think the Steelers are an 8-8 team, or in this case, a 9-8 team, or an 8-9 team. And I think that we'll see. I mean, Tomlin always has a way of beating one of those teams that you don't think he's going to beat. Last year it was the Bills, and then he'll come out and drop into a situation where he's going to tie the Detroit Lions at home, and you see that every single year, and these players are professional, right? So they're good too. It's just a matter of putting away those that we think we can put away. I think the Steelers do have an advantage of playing a relatively weak division in the NFC South, and the Philadelphia Eagles are anybody's guess, right? I mean, the A.J. Brown trade on draft day, I think took everybody by surprise a little bit, and they got Smith in the first round the previous year. And I think if Miles Sanders can stay healthy, they may actually have a running game. It's, the make or break year for Jalen Hurts. Right now he's just sort of been, scrambling, kind of magic maker in the background. But even their performance last year against Tampa in the playoffs was exactly what the Steelers faced when they went into Kansas City. It was just a drubbing. I don't think they've markedly improved since then, so I think that they are beatable, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers lost to them either. So sorry to be sort of, Mr. Mediocrity here, but I think 9-8, 8-9 is right about where we land.
Okay, next, all right, now that we have Luther DUPREE back up here on the stream, Luther, what's your thoughts on what I mentioned earlier about the schedule?
Yeah, I was kind of excuse my stream, but listen, I think the Steelers 8, 9, 10 wins is all predictable. Like I said, our division, yes, the Bengals look great, the Ravens have improved, the Browns have all kind of trouble. But when you look at it, there are very beatable teams on this schedule. We start off with the Bengals. I think that's a loss. The Patriots, I think we can beat the Patriots. Not very impressed with what they've done in the preseason. Not impressed with their quarterback as well. Then we go with the Browns, Jets. We can go on a nice winning streak. The Bills, I still think the Bills are still getting a lot of hype. Yes, I know they finished off strong and could have beaten the Chiefs, but we matched up well with them last year. We shut them down a little bit. I think we can do some things there. Buccaneers, they have some offensive line troubles, but I don't think we're going to get a victory there. Also, the Dolphins, young quarterback. They do have talent, but I think we can beat them. I really believe we can win 9 or 10 games. The offensive line has struggled. I'm sure you guys have talked about that. But, we have some stud playmakers. We just have to give the quarterbacks a little time. Najee Harris, stud. We have Chase Claypool. I think he's going to have a rebirth. I don't know what the connection issues were with Ben and him last year, but I think Trubinsky or Pickett, whoever's there, is going to have more trust in him. Deontay Johnson came back, looked like he never left, looked like the Pro Bowl receiver that he was. So I'm calling 10 wins, 9 or 10 wins. I think we're going to surprise a lot of people this year. Defense is going to be flying around the field, and offense, it's going to be touch and go. New offensive line coach. I don't know about his concepts yet. I think his players are having a little difficulty with it. But I think we'll be okay. A lot of this doomsday, I don't see it. I see a 9 or 10 win season because there's a small difference between the Steelers and everyone else. We're not so far apart. I can see 10 wins easily.
Okay, next we have Claudio Rosano.
I think Anthony Joshua should have been more aggressive. I think he should have kept the ring. Oh, I got the wrong show. All right, my fault. Okay. I think that.
Oh my!
If you look at the middle of the schedule, and Luther said, you look at the schedule, there's some beatable teams. Well, when those teams look at the Steelers, they say that's a beatable team as well. But I think if you look at that schedule starting somewhere in the middle after the Patriots, the Cleveland on the road isn't going to be a picnic. The Jets, they'll beat the Jets. But then you got Buffalo, Tampa, the Dolphins, Philadelphia. I mean, there's a stretch of games there. And I'm not going to sit on Indianapolis. I like Indianapolis as well. So I'm still thinking no more than 8 wins. I'm thinking along the lines of 7 wins. Again, I think they'll be competitive. They're never going to get blown out of the water. Well, let me take that back. With Ben there, they were never blown out of the water. Somehow he didn't have the physical ability he used to have, but he had the head, he had the heart, and he was able to keep them in games. Are you going to have that this year? I don't know. But again, defensively, I still don't think that they've solved the running problem. I still think they're going to give up the run, a lot of yards on the run. So that being the case, and then the offensive line, I'm not crazy about the offensive line. I think the wide receivers can be great. I think Najee Harris is great. But again, it depends who they start at quarterback. I think they have a better shot with Trubisky, as I said. But I still think 7, 8 wins. That's it.
All right, thank you. And Smoking Jim, go ahead.
All right. Hey, Luther offered to help me with my laptop earlier, and his sound like crap. So I'm glad I ain't thinking about what to do. Hey, listen, you got to be a fanboy if you think there's 10 wins here. Cincinnati's gonna blow them out. Hey, listen, unless Tom Brady super on a white safety on another getaway weekend, Tampa Bay's gonna hurt them. I'm worried about Miami because Flores took money to throw games before with Miami, so you gotta keep an eye on him. And your defensive coordinator, if they get to his cash out, we could be in trouble. Hey, listen, I'll be at the Philadelphia game cheering for the Eagles because I don't want to get jumped in the parking lot. But I think the Steelers will win that game. But hey, listen, man. This is a decent schedule. They're going out to Las Vegas, and I think the Raiders is going to take that next step. The Baltimore Ravens, more and more, I'm liking them. Ralph said even before the draft that the Ravens was outstanding, and Ralph agreed that they had an outstanding draft. And so I think the Pittsburgh Steelers will be maybe 8-9, 8-1. I think the most important thing for Coach Tomlin is to continue his streak of not winning playoff games, but not having a non-losing season. So that's where I see it.
All right, I think they're going to be either 9-8 or 10-7. I think they have if they can catch some breaks and start stripping the football on defense, creating turnovers, and if the offense can move the football and the special teams can start getting itself together with Danny Smith, who's been around for so long. I think he's as old as Social Security, but that's my opinion of Danny Smith. So anyway, I think if the Steelers can put everything together, they might squeeze out 10-7 or 9-8. That's what I'm thinking in that perspective. All right, next let's take a look at the AFC North as we've been talking about some of these teams. Let's start with Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati has upgraded a little. They have most of their players back from last year. I don't know about Super Bowl, but maybe they might make the playoffs. As Luther had mentioned in the past, we were only a few games short of getting where the Bengals were and tying them in the division. I think if we would have at least won one of those games against Cincinnati, I think we probably would have had a better record last year. But I think the Bengals have improved a little. I think Baltimore has improved a lot, and I think Cleveland has big egg on their face, and they're gonna fall again this year. And that's where I think they're. Let's go with. Let's start off with Smoking Jim Frazier. Go ahead. What's your thoughts?
Well, first of all, Cincinnati got a Hall of Fame quarterback that never played for Ohio State because Ohio State don't play white quarterbacks. So I think that right now Ohio State ought to be under investigation. You know, they ain't having a white quarterback that's on Preseason. But hey, listen, Burrows is confident. He already said that you know, it's Super Bowl or bust. He's not even including Kansas City. He said it's between them and Buffalo. From top to bottom, the Cincinnati Bengals, man, they're strong. They're on a whole another level, and they should be. You know, when you're drafted low, each and every year, you should be able to acquire talent, and then when you get a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback, long as Burrows can stay healthy, you know, I think that you know, there's no limit to what the Cincinnati Bengals can do.
All right, next, Claudio Rosano.
I like Cincinnati a lot. Good quarterback, very good running game. I think the defense is going to be okay, especially if the running game does what they can do. Cleveland, you know, I think they're either going to be good or bad, nothing in between. Either they're going to, I just don't see much out of Cleveland, unfortunately, for them and their situation. Who else we got? Ravens. I think last year Ravens. Harbaugh. It seemed like he was trying to lose. I mean, I like the aggressiveness, but sometimes he got a little bit carried away. I like their quarterback. I like Jackson more than most. I think he's very dangerous. When you got a guy like him, I think you're in the game. Yeah, he might throw some bad passes here and there, but I think they're going to be better this year. The Ravens. I mean, they had you think about the losses they had last year in overtime and all that kind of stuff. Or they're going for it and all that. That's what hurt them. But I think Cincinnati and Baltimore are definitely the class of the division. That's it.
Okay, we have Noel here on the comments section. He responds every show that I have. He's a loyal watcher. He says, and this is kind of like a little funny joke. He's been popping up here. Do we think Jamarcus Russell will ever solidify himself as a franchise quarterback? Oh my. Well, you know, at least Noel has a sense of humor there. There we go. Luther DUPREE.
Listen, we're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals. You can't call them the Bungles anymore. I love what they've done. They're a young team. They're very cocky. Last year, they caught a lot to get where they got. I didn't think they would beat Kansas City. I didn't think they did. Great quarterback. A young quarterback, maybe one of the top 5 young quarterbacks in the league. They have maybe the top receiver. Jamar Chase is completely that offense. They have 10 running back and Joe Mixon. They have Tyler Boyd, who we're all familiar with from around here in the slot. They are loaded with offensive weapons. The offensive issue with them, some adjustments. I don't think they made it. But offensively, they're going to be able to score points on any defense just as long as the offensive line holds up. Their defense, I don't like their corners. Anytime you have Eli Apple out toast, he's going to get. You'll be able to score. They can win a lot of shootouts. But Cincinnati, I have them and Baltimore fighting for it. Baltimore matches up well with when in there. So I see both of those guys, both those teams as the class. Are we going all teams or just?
I didn't hear you, Luther. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Are we talking just Cincinnati?
Okay. All right. Joe KUKLIS, you're next.
Okay.
I think what Luther was asking is if we were just talking about Cincinnati. I think that's what you had asked us for, our opinion on those guys. So I think Cincinnati is in the championship game again this year. I think it's likely them and Buffalo. I think that they went out and outside of losing really a stud tight end to the Jets in CJ Uzomah, they've got 3 number one as receivers, with Jamar Chase being a number one of potentially in the league. I mean, he really lived up to his billing last year coming in from LSU in a sit-out year. He didn't play during COVID. He still came in and, did what he did there, especially at the end of the year, just really turned it on. And they've got T. Higgins and obviously Tyler Boyd. And if Mixon, who's still young enough, can stay healthy, I think that the three offensive linemen they signed, I mean, they really invested their stockpile of money into three offensive linemen free agents. I think Joe Burrow will be protected. I think that they will score 35 points a game. And it reminds me of those Peyton Manning years where it's just stacking up that offense. Now, I do agree with some of the other guys. I think the defense is a little suspect right now, and that's where you're going to have to beat them. But I think that Cincinnati is going to be a real tough out for anybody, and I think the Steelers go over 2 against them.
All right. Next, we're going to talk about here, and we're here tonight, everybody, and welcome to Sports Corner Special Steelers preseason show. My guests are Joe KUKLIS, Claudio REILSONO, Luther DUPREE, and we also have SMOKIN Jim Frazier by ways of the telephone here tonight. And it's great to be here on this Wednesday night. Your comments are welcome in the comments section. Noel's been on, so you can put your comments in there as well. All right. Next, we're going to talk about some of the positions on the team. And Pittsburgh Big Dog says Ravens will win the division. So how's everyone feel about that one? Let's start. All right. Now, let's go by position here real quick. Offensive line. What improvements do they need to make? What do they need to do? Do you think the offensive line is going to be any good this year? Let's start off with Joe KUKLIS.
Well, when you get a poker hand and you look at your cards and you throw them all back, that's where I think we are with the offensive line. I mean, I think the Chukwuma Okafor signing was a stretch. They overpaid a guy who's been only mediocre in his few first seasons with the Steelers. I think Dan Moore was also a stretch, starting a guy that you drafted as a rookie on the lower end. And we saw what happened last year. Now, he did improve as the season went on. But I heard Craig Wolfley describe Kendrick Green last year saying that, his weakness is his strength. And he was talking about his physical strength. He got manhandled by some of the larger nose tackles in the game. I just don't know why they spent, a higher round pick or let some of the other, center picks go by them when they had a chance to draft a couple of guys, 2 of which ended up in the Pro Bowl last year as rookies. Instead, we drafted a guy that was a defensive tackle in Illinois and only really played 4 or 5 games. I mean, it made no sense to me whatsoever. And I thought this season they at least attempted to address it in part in free agency with the signing of Mason Cole. But Mason playing for Minnesota, it's a run-oriented team with Dalvin Cook. I'm hoping maybe they can plug him in. He has some positional flexibility. He can play guard. He can play tackle if necessary. And we'll see how some of these free agent signings panned out. But they really went for. I mean, we know this year they're going to have to run the ball better, right? And so they went out and got 2 guys, one from Chicago, one from Minnesota, brought them in who are better run blockers than they are pass blockers. And I think if any Steeler fans are fooling themselves into believing that they're going to see a very similar offense as we had under Ben, it's not going to be the case. We've got 2 out of our 3 mobile quarterbacks. I expect scrambles. I expect that we're going to see some, Matt Canada craziness when it comes to that kind of stuff. And, even though I think their receiving core is deep, it's still going to be 2 seconds and out because this offensive line is just poor at this point.
Okay, next, SMOKIN Jim Frazier.
Well, I tell you what, I like the way Mason Cole breaks the huddle. He sprints to the ball. That's the best thing I can say. Hey, listen, very disappointed. Kendrick Green was more and more like a super bust. This is a guy who couldn't play center. Now he's finding out he can't play guard. So when you draft a guy that high, in the draft, and you can't get nothing out of him. Kevin Dotson, got to get something out of him. Had a good, decent rookie year. He's regressed since. Dan Moore Jr., I didn't like him at Texas A&M. I like him even less now. Man, James Daniels looking like a turnstile out there. You might as well put an orange cone out there instead of him. Listen, I've said all along that Freiermuth is the best tight end the Steelers had since Eric Green. I think he's even better than Heath Miller. But he didn't block at Penn State, and he refuses to block now. So you're not getting no help from your blocking from your tight end. So it's just going to be a long season. Like Claudio said, the most important part of your football team is the offense and defensive line. And if that is true, we're going to struggle because this offensive line can't even block vanilla defenses here in the preseason. These guys are not stunting, they're not game planning, and we still can't consistently block anybody from Jacksonville.
Okay, Claudio Rosano.
I agree with a lot what Joe and Jim said, especially about you have great, very good wide receivers. Some of them have a chance to be great, but then you call hype, man. You got to get rid of that ball quick, and that's what everybody was criticizing Roethlisberger for last year. But you're going to get the same thing this year because the offensive line is going to be able to contain all the blitzes and all the rushes. So again, to repeat, I sound like a broken record. They did not need a quarterback. Once you got a quarterback from the free agent market, which they did, okay, then you really solidify the offensive line. If you have a very good offensive line, you can make a mediocre quarterback better. You can make a great quarterback a Hall of Famer. Okay, you get Dan Marino, Joe Montana, those guys. If you don't have a good offensive line and give them time to work their magic, they're going to be average quarterbacks. So again, I think they should have gone, but since they didn't, now they have to. I mean, Matt Canada can come up with all the great fancy designs and plays, but you have the players to carry those great offensive plays out. I don't know. Like Joe said, 2 seconds, you better get rid of that ball. And one thing I do think Pickett eventually is going to be a starting quarterback there. He holds the ball a little bit too long for my money. And everybody's going crazy about his stats. Dink and dunk, dink and dunk. I know one time I told Luther, I said, he doesn't have an arm like Marino or Elway. And Luther said, well, who does? I get that. But at least have an arm like Kirk Cousins. You know what I mean? I just don't buy into him. But let's say Trubisky. I think Trubisky could be better, but he needs time. He's got weapons. Najee Harris is big time. Somebody, again, Luther and I have been talking about for a long time is oh my God, the other running back, Luther, what's his name? McFarland.
Yeah, Anthony McFarland. Yeah,
I think he could be a game breaker with giving enough plays. And again, Najee Harris is big time, and I like the tight ends. I like the weapons, but in order to you have a car that can run fast, but you have to have gas in it. You have to have tires. I don't know if they have the tires. They have a half decent quarterback. They have the offensive weapons. But again, I just don't like the offensive line. I keep saying it over and over. I think Dotson's going to have a little bit of a better season, I would hope. But the other guys, I just don't see it.
All right, Luther DUPREE. I don't know if you're having volume problems, Luther. I can't hear you.
Luther said he agrees with everything I said.
All right, I can hear you now.
I'll translate. He said, Smoking Jim and I and Joe KUKLIS are exactly right about everything, and Luther's always been wrong.
Yeah, I can't hear him for some strange reason. I don't know why.
Claudio, can you hear me?
Yes, I got you now, Luth.
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm talking a little bit louder now, but yeah, it's trash. Pat Meyer's not getting it done. Is Munchak available? Is there any way we can get him back? Because when your offensive linemen are all coming out talking about they don't understand the concept, I don't know what he has these guys doing. It's blocking. Keep the guy out in front of you. Move the guy. Don't let the guy run past you. It's embarrassing. That Jacksonville game, it was a race to the quarterback. Soon as they got the ball, they're trying to find out where to run. And, it has to change. I'm very disappointed. Kendrick Green doesn't have it. Short arms. He's not very strong. When you have guys just pushing you back like you're right back into the quarterback, you're not ready. He can't play center. He can't play guard. He looks better gone, unfortunately. They said he had a nasty attitude, and that's why they drafted him. I don't see it. He has to get nasty on the field, but physically he can't. Pouncey worked with him this offseason. It's not there. But, Claudio, you're wrong. Kenny Pickett is the one. He's poised back there. He reads the defense. He's mobile. He's going to be everything that you think he's not. I'm telling you, he's the real deal. Got a quarterback poised back there, and nothing phases this kid. And you can't really call him a kid because he's 26. But he's that guy. We got to get him in there by the 6th game. Once the offensive line gets a little bit more cohesion, I think he's going to be ready to take off, Claudio.
I hope I'm wrong.
He will. He's that guy. He's special.
Smoking Jim Frazier.
I think I already went.
Oh, that's right. You did. I'm sorry.
I'm just
Wow.
here looking at. I'm watching the tape now. I've never seen gloves so small.
All right. If anyone had noticed, if you watched the Jacksonville game, okay, we knew Trubisky was having issues. Pickett was running out of pocket. But did you notice Mason Rudolph, when he was getting every snap he had, he moved to the left, he moved to the right. He had to throw on the run. He was doing that because the line was bad. And I think that this offensive line is horrendous, as I agree with everybody else. And I expected better as well. And you know what? This is worse than it is last year. And I just don't understand. We had 2 coaches last year, in Adrian Clem and Craig Morgan. And then Morgan, he left to go do something else, and then they brought in this Pat Meyer, and I don't even know what exactly Pat Meyer's going to do to fix this, because it's not being fixed. And something has to give here. They gave Okafor, and I call him Ogafart. They gave him too much money, and so I mean, it's unbelievable. And Dan Moore, he keeps getting pushed off the line. Kendrick Green's no good. I mean, what do you do now? And you got guys out there, and you got money in the cap. Let's go get somebody. Let's go bring some of these guys in. There's some guys that, they keep bringing these undrafted free agents that come from these teams that they're putting in the scrap heap, and that's not going to work anymore. They have to do something with that. Yes, Jim.
Maybe they can put that fat punter in a guard.
Hey, he had a 73-yard punt. I mean, come on. And he lost a bunch of weight this year, too.
Yeah. He was kicking his hand off. That's the best game he's had in a Steeler uniform. Percy Harvin, get off his back, Jim.
Okay. Let's do some closing remarks here, because we're coming up on almost 6 minutes left in the show. We have the defense here that we can dissect a little bit. Overall defense, Luther DUPREE, let's start off with you.
Okay. When you talk about the defense, we got to talk about it should be a 2-time MVP in TJ Watt. I look for another 20 sacks, maybe more than 20 this year. Unfortunately, Highsmith, he hasn't lived up to what I thought he would be. The defensive line, of course, we got Hayward. He just number 42 on the 100 players list. But Devin Bush, he looks worse and worse. I thought he would come back. I didn't like his statements talking about, even if the Steelers cut him, I'm still going to be in the NFL. Well, fine. Get your stuff and get the heck out of here. That's not the answer you wanted. All he had to do is say, I was drafted by the Steelers. I'm going to come. I'm going to show out. But that answer was ridiculous. He showed no heart. And I think his teammates are finally starting to see it. Miles Jack is a stud. I was so impressed. It's been 3 years since I saw a linebacker throw off an offensive guard and then go make the running back for a 1-yard gain. I loved it. He's going to be terrific back there. Mika Fitzpatrick got the contract. I think they're going to let him roam around more. Stop letting him. There's no way he should be the leading tackler this year. No way whatsoever. If he is, we're in big trouble. Edmonds is what he is. Our corners are average. But I think when you have Watt putting that pressure, Hayward still has a lot left. I think we're going to be okay. Miles Jack is the key because he can cover the tight ends. He's active, he's athletic, and he knows the game. Will be a top 10 defense once again.
Okay, Smoking Jim Frazier.
Hey, that's where all the money's at on the defensive side of the ball. I said on draft day that T.J. Watt would be the best linebacker in Steeler history. He's proven me right. Now I'm saying he's the greatest player in Pittsburgh Steeler history, and if they build a statue, it should be a T.J. Watt outside the stadium. Hey, listen, the Steelers have good starters. Defense. The defensive line is really good with their first string. Backups is tough. Listen, I know Luther says that the cornerback position and defensive back position, but I think if they put the right combination in there, dude, Levi Wallace from Buffalo Bills can give you some good play as a defensive back. Nobody's better than Mika Fitzpatrick. I think Witherspoon took a step last year. He was injured early on, but he played really well against Jacksonville. I like his height. I like his speed. He learned a lot in San Francisco. Nickelback is Cameron Sutton. You got to get a little something out of him. And again, Terrell Edmonds is only drafted in the first round because I think Coach Tomlin went to the prom with his mom. That's the only thing I can figure out.
All right, Claudio Rosana.
A couple things. Smoking Jim did not like Bush from day one, and he's been proven right. And Jim, I have a question for you. If they build a statue of Watt, is it going to be bigger than Deontay Wilder's?
Oh.
That's good. Oh, yeah, that's good. All right. I think Bush, they have to they cannot give him too much time because he's going to hurt them. And like Luther said, I don't think anybody liked his answer. So I think he's out. I do like that Tuska kid, if that's how you pronounce it. I really like him a lot. Okay. I think he's going to be, he's going to make a lot of splash plays. That kid, he's all over the place. I like him. Hayward and Watt, I mean, they are who they are. But I like Sutton. And Minka is Minka, but I don't, the rest of them, I think they're not consistent in my opinion. But to be the highest paid defense in football, they're certainly not going to play as the highest defense in my opinion. And I think they're going to struggle with the run. And like Luther said, Fitzpatrick cannot lead your team in tackles. That's for sure. But I'll repeat, I don't think they're going to be that much better against the run this year. But I'm going to tell you something. That kid Tuska, keep your eyes open on him. I like him a lot. I'm curious to think what you guys think of him, if you don't mind. Jim, Luther, Joe, and Ralph. What are your thoughts on him?
Oh, I like Derek Tuska. I think he's a good player. I think he plays with a heart. And he's a good backup, and he's put in the time when he needed to. I believe he's done sufficient. I mean, he's been there, he's done it, and that's Joe Kuglis.
Well, to answer Claudio's question, I think he's a backup that can spot play.
Okay.
I think he's I wish you could take his heart and stick it in Devin Bush. When the Steelers traded up to get it's true. I mean, it just sometimes that happens, right? He's got this sort of Rudy mentality, and I think when the Steelers made a trade up to get a Devin, they missed they got the wrong Devin. They should have gotten Devin White in the draft, and that it cost them, right? So, and I think Luther, I don't think you have to worry about Minka Fitzpatrick, leading the team in tackles this year. I think that's going to be Miles Jack. I agree with you. That guy is a stud. When Jacksonville cut him, I was salivating for the opportunity. I know some folks wanted to see Bobby Wagner. I think Bobby Wagner would have been playing out of position. I thought, it was worth a consideration, but ultimately, I look at this and I say to myself, we've got an inside guy that can make a lot of tackles. And, if Bush just plays adequately, and I think the key to the defense is just stay healthy. I know that's hard to do. Guys get injured playing football all the time. There's going to be games where we're going to be missing key players. But at the end of the day, if Hayward, Alualu, Jack, and Fitzpatrick stay healthy all season, we're going to have one heck of a defense.
All right, we have some derogatory comments here addressed at Luther, but Big Pittsburgh Big Dog says you clowns in the chat, STFU. I like that. That was a good one there by the Pittsburgh Big Dog. So, all right. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight on the Steeler preseason special. Joe Kuglis, Claudio Rosano, Luther Dupree, and Smoking Jim Frazier by way of the telephone. It was a great show tonight. Thank you guys for being here. Everybody have a great night and be safe.
Thanks, Ralph. Great
Nice
show,
seeing
man.
you guys. Yep.